Nobody in Austrian tennis expected this to become the story of the week. A 20-year-old from Manila raced thousands of miles from the nearest red clay court that mattered, walking into the TipsArena in Linz and threatening to dismantle a hometown veteran on her own turf. But that is precisely the collision course the WTA 500 Upper Austria Ladies Linz has delivered, and the tennis world cannot look away. Let us rewind for a moment, because the gravity of what is unfolding in Linz only makes sense once you understand the full arc of Alexandra Eala's trajectory. She did not come from a country with a deep tennis infrastructure. The Philippines produces boxers, basketball players, pool champions. Tennis was an afterthought, a country club pastime that never translated into global relevance. Then a girl from Manila changed the calculus. At 13 years old, Alex Eala left everything she knew, boarded a plane to Mallorca, Spain, and enrolled at the Rafa Nadal Academy. 13. Think about that for a second. Most kids that age are worrying about school projects and weekend plans. Eala was relocating continents to chase a dream that no Filipino woman had ever realized at the highest level of professional tennis. The Rafa Nadal Academy shaped her in ways that go beyond forehands and backhands. She absorbed the ethos of discipline, physicality, and relentless mental fortitude that defined Rafael Nadal's career. She trained alongside elite juniors. She studied between sessions. And slowly, meticulously, she climbed. By 2020, she had her first junior Grand Slam doubles title at the Australian Open, partnering with Priska Nugroho from Indonesia. The following year, on the clay of Roland Garros no less, she captured the French Open girls doubles alongside Russia's Oksana Selikhmatova, defeating Maria Bondarenko and Marisa Kiera-Toth in the final 6-love, 7-5. That second title announced something unmistakable to anyone paying attention. This was not just a talented teenager collecting trophies at the junior level. This was a player building a foundation for something much larger. The transition from juniors to the professional tour, however, is where careers go to die. The graveyard of women's tennis is littered with former junior champions who never translated their success onto the main stage. The speed increases. The power jumps a tier. The tactical sophistication of seasoned professionals exposes every weakness a young player hides behind raw talent. Eala navigated this treacherous passage with more patience than most. She ground through qualifiers, lost matches she should have won, learned to manage her emotions in hostile environments, and gradually built a ranking that reflected her potential rather than just her ambition. And then came the 2025 Miami Open. If there is a single tournament that divided Alex Eala's career into before and after, it is that event. She entered as a wild card, ranked around 140th in the world. A wild card. The kind of entry that top players barely notice on the draw sheet. She was supposed to be a footnote, a first-round exit, a feel-good story for Filipino tennis fans that lasted about 90 minutes on an outer court. Instead, she set the tournament on fire. In the second round, she dismantled Jelena Ostapenko, the 2017 French Open champion, in straight sets. Let that register. A teenager ranked outside the top 100 beating a Grand Slam champion. Then she took out Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion and world number 5, again in straight sets. And then, in the quarterfinals, she faced the formidable Iga Swiatek, the world number 2, a player who had dominated women's tennis for the better part of 3 years. Eala beat her. Straight sets. The arena could not believe what it was witnessing. 3 consecutive victories over Grand Slam champions, each one more emphatic than the last. She reached the semifinals of a WTA 1000 event as a wildcard. It was the kind of run that doesn't just elevate a ranking. It rewrites a narrative. Her semifinal loss did nothing to diminish what she had accomplished. The tennis world had taken notice, permanently. By the end of 2025, she had become the first Filipina to win a main draw match at the US Open, stunning Clara Tauson in a landmark moment for Philippine sport. She closed the year ranked 50th in the world, a career high at the time, a number that would have seemed fantasy just 12 months prior. The 2026 season picked up right where she left off. She reached the semifinals of the ASB Classic in Auckland, pushing the talented Sinew Wang to 3 sets before falling. At the Dubai Tennis Championships, she produced another signature performance, beating world number 8 Jasmine Paolini 6-1, 7-6 in a display of aggressive, fearless tennis that reminded everyone of her Miami heroics. She followed that with a win over Serena Sursti and pushed deep into the Indian Wells and Miami Opens, reaching the round of 16 at both. By March 16, 2026, she had climbed to a career-high ranking of world number 29, the highest-ranked Filipino player in WTA Tour history. A 20-year-old carrying an entire country's tennis hopes on her shoulders and thriving under the weight. But tennis is unforgiving. The same ranking system that rewards ascent punishes the inability to defend points. After her Miami Open exit this year, falling short of the semifinal depth she achieved in 2025, Eala dropped 16 spots to number 45. Then 46. The mathematics of the WTA ranking system are brutal in their precision. You don't just earn your place once. You earn it again, every single year, at the exact same tournaments. Fall short of where you were 12 months ago, and the floor drops beneath you. This is the context for what is happening in Linz. Eala did not arrive in Austria merely to play a match. She arrived with something to prove, something to reclaim, and something deeply personal to confront. Clay. The surface that has haunted her. Consider her clay court record over the past 2 seasons. In 2025, she played 4 tournaments on the red dirt. Her results were stark. A win over Victoria Tomova in Portugal, and then nothing but losses. She crashed out of the Madrid Open, the Italian Open, and the French Open without advancing past the second round, posting a 2-4 record. The closest she came to a signature clay victory was against Swiatek in Madrid, where she took the first set 6-4 before the Pole's superior clay court instincts and grinding baseline game eventually overwhelmed her, 4-6, 2-6. In 2024, the pattern was similar. 3 wins from 9 matches on the surface. In 2023, she went winless in 3 attempts. The numbers paint a clear picture. Alex Eala, giant killer on hard courts, has struggled to translate her game to clay. The reasons are both tactical and temperamental. Eala thrives as a counterpuncher. She reads the pace of incoming shots beautifully, redirects with sharp angles, and uses her opponent's power against them. On hard courts, the ball travels fast and predictable off the surface. Her timing is exquisite. On clay, everything changes. The ball sits up. It kicks. It slides. Rallies lengthen by 3, 4, sometimes 10 extra shots. The aggressive counterpunching that works so well on hard court becomes a liability when the clay absorbs pace and turns her penetrating shots into floating opportunities for her opponent. She has to generate her own power rather than borrowing it, and she has to sustain rallies that test not just skill but physical endurance and emotional patience. Her time at the Rafa Nadal Academy, however, gives reason for optimism. She recently returned there for a pre-clay season training block, working on indoor clay courts, adjusting her movement patterns, deepening her topspin, and rehearsing the kind of extended baseline exchanges that clay demands. Reports from Mallorca suggested she also linked up with Iga Swiatek during this training window. Practicing against the greatest clay court player of this generation is not something you put on a brochure. It is the kind of preparation that gets into your muscle memory, your tactical brain, your understanding of what winning on clay actually requires at the highest level. Now she stands at the entrance to the Linz Open, a WTA 500 event that represents her opening salvo in the 2026 clay court swing. She has precious few points to defend from last year's clay season, which means this is pure opportunity. Every win adds to her total. Every round she advances brings her closer to reclaiming the top 30 ranking she briefly held. The draw, however, has not been kind. If she gets past her first-round opponent, 2017 French Open champion Jelena Ostapenko awaits in the second round. Ostapenko, the 2024 Linz champion, is exactly the kind of clay court force that has troubled Eala in the past, although the Filipina does hold a 2-0 head-to-head advantage from 2025. But first things first. Julia Grabher stands between Eala and the second round. Grabher is 29 years old, from Dornbirn, Austria, and she carries the weight of being a home favorite in this tournament. She reached a career-high ranking of 54 in 2023 and made her Grand Slam debut at the Australian Open that same year. She is a right-handed baseline grinder whose game is most comfortable on clay. Her career numbers tell the story. She holds a 65% win rate on clay over her career, compared to a far less impressive 43% on hard courts. The red dirt is her domain. She slides into shots with practiced ease, constructs points with patient rally tolerance, and waits for opponents to make the first mistake. She does not overpower anyone. She outlasts them. And yet, Grabher's 2026 season has been dismal. A 3-8 record through the first 3 months of the year. She has not won more than a single match in any tournament. For a player of her caliber and experience, those numbers suggest something deeper than a slump. They suggest a player searching for confidence, for rhythm, for the competitive identity that once carried her into the top 60. Playing at home, on her preferred surface, in front of a crowd that will roar her name with every point, should theoretically be the antidote. Home energy is real in tennis. The crowd becomes a 12th player, lifting the underdog through tight moments, making the opponent feel every ounce of isolation on the other side of the net. This is the tension that makes this match so compelling. Eala is the higher-ranked player, the favorite by the numbers, the ascending star whose career trajectory points relentlessly upward. But she is playing on a surface that has exposed her weaknesses repeatedly, in a country that is not hers, against a player who has spent her entire career mastering the exact conditions she is about to face. The Austrian crowd will not be hostile toward Eala. She is too charismatic, too likable, too clearly special for anyone to root against her with genuine malice. But they will cheer for Grabher with a partisan warmth that could fuel the veteran's game and rattle Eala's composure if things get tight. Tactically, the match presents a fascinating puzzle. Grabher will want to drag Eala into extended rallies, keeping the ball deep and central, denying the Filipina the angles she loves to create. She will target Eala's movement on clay, testing whether those training sessions in Mallorca translated into genuine improvement or merely practice court confidence. Grabher's slice backhand, which skids low on clay, could prove particularly effective against Eala's preference for balls at waist height. If Grabher can keep the rallies long and the points physical, she can turn this into a war of attrition that favors her experience and her comfort on the surface. Eala, on the other hand, needs to impose her will early. She cannot afford to get dragged into a passive, attritional match. Her best weapon on any surface is her ability to take the ball early and dictate play from the baseline. On clay, that means being willing to step inside the court, take the ball on the rise despite the higher bounce, and compress the time Grabher has to recover between shots. If Eala can find her range quickly and establish the kind of aggressive tempo she showed against Paolini in Dubai, Grabher's defensive game will buckle under the pressure. But if Eala's timing is off, even slightly, the clay will expose her. Shots that would be winners on hard courts will land mid-court on clay, sitting up perfectly for Grabher to counterpunch with her own brand of patience. There is a mental dimension to this match that transcends tactics. Eala knows that clay is her Achilles heel. Every player who has watched her career recognizes it. The tennis media has written about it extensively. It is the one area where the question marks remain, where the doubters still have ammunition. Walking onto that red clay in Linz, she will carry not just the anticipation of Filipino fans worldwide, but the private knowledge that this is the surface where she has most often fallen short of her own standards. How she manages that internal pressure will determine the outcome as much as any forehand or serve. Grabher, too, carries her own burden. A losing record in 2026. The creeping realization that at 29, the window for a career resurgence is narrowing. Playing at home amplifies everything. A victory could reignite her season, send a signal that she still belongs at this level, and give the Austrian tennis public a moment of genuine celebration. A loss, especially to a younger player who has publicly struggled on clay, would sting in ways that go beyond the ranking points. It would feel like a missed opportunity that the calendar may not offer again. The TipsArena will buzz with anticipation when these two walk onto the court. 3,000 seats, most of them filled with Austrian supporters hoping to witness their countrywoman make a statement. Eala's global fanbase, particularly the massive and devoted Filipino tennis community, will follow every point through screens and streams around the world. The energy will be palpable. The stakes for both players are higher than the ranking points suggest. What makes this match a potential shocker is not simply the possibility that Eala wins. It is the manner in which she could win. If Eala comes out with conviction, takes the ball early, generates pace from her own shots rather than relying on borrowed pace, and refuses to let Grabher settle into her grinding rhythm, it would represent a fundamental evolution in her game. It would mean that the training at the Rafa Nadal Academy worked. It would mean that the girl who conquered hard courts by beating Swiatek, Keys, and Ostapenko has figured out how to adapt her brilliance to a slower, more demanding surface. It would mean the last remaining question mark about her game has been answered. And for Grabher, the scenario is equally dramatic in the other direction. If the Austrian can summon her best clay court tennis, feed off the home crowd, extend rallies beyond Eala's comfort zone, and prove that her 2026 struggles are a blip rather than a trend, it would be her own form of redemption. A statement that experience and surface mastery still count for something in a sport increasingly dominated by fearless youth. Either way, this is the kind of first-round match that transcends its place on the draw sheet. It is a collision of narratives, a clash of playing styles, and a test of character for two women who have very different things to prove on the same patch of red clay. Eala is seeking to silence the only remaining criticism of her meteoric rise. Grabher seeking to prove that her career still has chapters left to write. The Linz Open drew a formidable field this year. Top seed Mira Andreeva, the world number 10, headlines the event. Defending champion Ekaterina Alexandrova is back. Jelena Ostapenko, the 2024 champion, lurks in Eala's section of the draw. Former world number 2 Paula Badosa accepted a wildcard. This is not a soft tournament. This is a proving ground, and Eala has landed in arguably the most dangerous section of the draw. Beating Grabher is step 1. Ostapenko in the second round would be step 2. Each round represents an escalation in difficulty, a gauntlet that would test every dimension of her clay court development. But before any of that matters, it comes down to one match. One afternoon in Linz. One opportunity to walk onto clay and announce, definitively, that the weakness everyone has talked about no longer exists. Alex Eala has beaten the best players on the planet on hard courts. She has toppled Grand Slam champions, risen to the top 30, and carried the hopes of an entire nation on her racket. The only thing missing from her resume is proof that she can do it on clay. Linz is where that proof begins. And Julia Grabher, standing on the other side of the net with home support thundering behind her and a desperate need to salvage a dismal season, will not make it easy. She cannot afford to. For Grabher, this is survival. For Eala, this is evolution. For the rest of us watching, this is precisely the kind of drama that makes tennis the most psychologically compelling sport on earth. The red clay of Austria awaits. The question hanging over this match is not simply who will win. It is who will emerge transformed.